All right, we're back for the final episode of On the Record. There might be only one Oklahoma, but we've got two hosts today representing the Sooners. I'm Brie Miller.
And I'm Julia St. John. Today, we're closing out the series with Meagan Martin Powers and talking about building a legal brand. Meagan is a graduate of Baylor University, where she earned a degree in accounting, and an alum of Harvard Law School.
She's also the founder and managing attorney of Martin Powers Counsel, and since 2019 has annually named one of D Magazine's best lawyers in Dallas. Thank you for joining us today, Meagan.
Thank you for having me.
Full disclosure here, I'm currently the summer associate at Meagan's firm, so I've seen firsthand how she builds her brand, engages in the community, and connects others to it. Before we jump into the hard-hitting questions, can you share a little bit about how you became a lawyer? And was law school always in the stars for you?
So that's a good question. When I graduated high school, I wrote in my yearbook that I wanted to be a diplomat. I would have been a terrible diplomat. So I did not always want to be a lawyer. I went to Baylor, got 2 degrees in accounting, and it was my dad that encouraged me to take the LSAT and apply for law school while I was still in college. And it was just apply. Only apply where you want to go. And then you can decide later. He just wanted me to keep the door open. I think he always thought I'd be a lawyer. So I did. And I then graduated. I went to work for Arthur Andersen. And about 3 weeks into my first full-time adult job, the company I was working for, Arthur Andersen, was indicted for fraud and conspiracy to commit fraud over the Enron bankruptcy. So I revoked my deferral. I had been admitted to Harvard at that point and started law school that fall. And in a full circle moment, I ended up working as an associate right out of law school for Weil Gottschall, who was debtor's counsel to Enron, and some of my first matters were related to Enron. So that's how I became a lawyer, and I think it all worked out.
How does it feel to not only be a lawyer, but to be successful in the sense that you've been named to D Magazine's best lawyers in Dallas for multiple years in a row?
So that is actually a loaded question, and you may not recognize that. I have been named to D Magazine's list, I guess, for 4 years in commercial litigation. And it's a true honor because it is based on the votes and recommendations of my colleagues. But what I have also recognized over the past couple of years, and particularly this past year, that the D Magazine list and also the Texas Monthly Super Lawyers list has a systemic problem. In my category, commercial litigation, of all the names that were listed, less than 20% were women. And of those, I believe there was 1 or 2, I don't have the list in front of me, were women of color. And so when we talk about things like D Magazine lists being the barometer of success, I am now very conscious of the fact that that is leaving out a lot of our sisters, and particularly our sisters of color, whose work is just amazing. They're killing it in the courtroom. They are building strong books of business. And for whatever reason, the way we've chosen to recognize the best of the best is leaving them off the list.
Do you think that there's really any way to go about fixing that with how much people revere and look up to D Magazine for making those decisions when hiring attorneys?
That's a good question. I think it is possible to fix it. I don't ever want to say that we're just stuck with a system that doesn't work. I think the leadership at D Magazine, and frankly the leadership of the Dallas Bar, need to be having a conversation about how they solicit nominations for those lists and to make sure that they are doing a comprehensive outreach so that we get everyone who should be considered. And then I have no idea how they evaluate once they have all the nominations, but we need to make sure that process actively seeks to eliminate bias, because it's clear that it's there. And now that we know about it, we should, as a community who, we all went to law school to pursue things like justice, that we should be pursuing that amongst our own ranks as well.
I love that. And I think you do a great job of doing that yourself, and not just talking the talk, but walking the walk through running an all-woman law firm. So I'd love to hear a little bit about how your journey to creating this incredible firm and how becoming founder and CEO has really changed the way you look at things?
Well, this has been probably the best professional decision I've ever made. I got my career started in a traditional firm. I worked for a while in their Dallas office for almost 5 years. There, I was raised by some amazing women lawyers. Yvette Ostalaza, who is now I believe, the global managing partner for Sidley, Yolanda Garcia, Penny Reed, Angela Zambrano, Kelly Duvalla, Angela Fontana. Frankly, as a young lawyer, it didn't occur to me that my gender would ever hold me back because those were the women that I was surrounded with. But after I left Weil, I did start to see issues that women lawyers face as they grow from baby associates to senior associates and being considered for partnership. And I saw that the traditional model was it was failing women. And I frankly didn't understand why, but I was part of the inaugural, Dallas Bar Association's inaugural We Lead class. It's Women Empowered to Lead. And it's a group of women lawyers at that age where they're young partners or trying to bridge up to be partner. And it supports them with a curriculum and group of, friends that can help you make those big changes. And what I recognized in listening to the stories of the other women is that they were putting in just as many hours as their male colleagues. And the system was designed in a way that didn't reward their efforts commensurate with the same level of efforts of their male colleagues. And so I decided to create this law firm to be a platform for all lawyers, not just women lawyers. We happen to be all women at this time, but to create a platform where lawyers get rewarded for developing business, serving clients, and doing great work, and that it doesn't have the hierarchy that is, the basis of the traditional law firm. And my hope is that in doing that, we empower women lawyers, especially, to grow their business, create opportunities. I mean, we just finished our 3rd year of business and we were in a position to bring in our first summer associate with Brie. But I think that as women grow and do better, we all grow and do better, and our clients do better. And that traditional model, it's failing clients. We see it in the statistics, and I hope that we're doing something better. It's a good experiment so far, and I think it's been working.
So speaking of your firm, Martin Powers Counsel, I don't know if you've ever done a rose, thorn, bud exercise. So it's this might come from my teaching days, but you talk about kind of your rose, the best part of starting your firm. I feel like you touched on that a little bit just now. The thorn, so maybe the greatest obstacle or something that kind of is challenging you as a lawyer and now CEO. And then a bud. What is something that has surprised you or is on the horizon that you are most excited for as the firm continues to grow?
The best part of starting the firm has been watching it grow and watching women lawyers join us and be successful and see and live on a day in, day out basis lives that are professionally and personally fulfilling. And that gives me a lot of happiness, and it drives me to make this place better and to scope it out in a way that makes me nervous, but creates more opportunity for more people. The most challenging part has been bridging from being a practitioner and just focused on being my client's counselor and lawyer to being the leader of a team beyond just being a team for a particular case or client. The buck stops with me, literally. And I have to think about everything from how much office space do we take on? How much do we spend building out new office space? How many new employees or new attorneys can we bring in? And how to get us all on the same page with client management, practice management, all of the things. And I will tell you that when I started the firm, it didn't occur to me how time consuming that could be, and that there are many ways to do it. But thankfully, I've been able to count on some of the other women in this community who are doing the same thing. Amy Stewart, Dawn Estes, Jennifer Spencer, great women who've started their own firms, and they have been such a resource to me. It's been very helpful. And what am I most excited about? I'm excited about the great things that we get to do in the community. From year one, we have picked out projects that are important to us, that are consistent with our values. And we believe in giving generously with our time and our dollars. And just some of the fun things that we've gotten to do to help our community and to help other women, and some of the more serious things, but that have been very impactful. And I envision this as being a platform to serve women, both in the legal profession and outside of it. And I'm excited about what kind of gifts we can give our community in the future.
That's so awesome. Could you give us an example of how your firm or yourself has been engaged in the community?
Sure. So one of our clients, it's known as the Dove Agency. They actually provide back office services to the interior design industry. We've worked with Dove Agency since 2019. It's also a woman-owned business, and we work with a lot of their interior designers. It's a little niche practice we have. So I was reading the Dallas Morning News last fall, and I read an article about a soft interview room concept used in police departments, and it's where you take a sexual assault survivor and interview her so that the police can get evidence to hopefully locate the criminal and aid in the prosecution of that criminal. And otherwise, these women and girls, sometimes men and boys, but it's often women and young girls, are interviewed in, the stark, dark witness rooms that you see on Law and Order, with metal tables and chairs, and not an area that is in any way conducive to sharing the most painful and traumatic experience of your life. So there's a nonprofit called Project Beloved, the Molly Jane Project. It's founded in Fort Worth by Molly Jane's mother after her daughter was attacked in her apartment, raped and murdered. And they go to police departments and they build out the interiors of soft witness interview rooms. And the article was about how there was a backlog in the ability to fulfill the requests. And I have this significant work in the interior design space with my clients. And so I reached out to Project Beloved to find out how we could help. And we found out that they needed money. So we immediately, the firm funded. The Dallas Police Department was on the waiting list. We immediately funded their room. And then they also needed assistance with sourcing. And the supply chain issue was really hitting them hard. And so I brought together Project Beloved and my client. And they are now together doing amazing things, including providing backpacks with toiletries and a change of clothes for the woman, because she usually leaves the hospital in a hospital gown because her clothes are now evidence and doesn't have things like toothbrush and toothpaste. And so anyway, that's what we did this past fall. It was very hard because when we finished doing the room, the police chief and his team were there to thank everybody, and then we had to get out of the way quickly because they got a call that they needed the room. And just to know that they needed the room right then to interview what I understood was a teenage sex trafficking victim, it was heartbreaking, but it was also just knowing that we made that woman's day just slightly less awful. So that was just one of the little projects that we've done and that we continue to do.
I think that is so beautiful, this idea that you have a platform to serve, but also what kind of stuck out to me is your brand and your role as kind of a connector, that you see yourself as a leader within the community and your ability to not only see these needs, but I love that you connected your interior design client with Project Beloved, and it is even living on beyond kind of the work you did with them. Can you speak a little bit more to the power of connections, whether it's the connections you make or the connections you're making with the people and the companies and organizations you know?
The practice and success of a lawyer is based on connections. It's based on your reputation for technical excellence and the ability to handle a case. It's based on your communication with your client. You're their counselor. It's based on your communication and relationships with all of the other lawyers in Dallas and frankly across the country that are part of your network. We don't advertise. All of our business is referral based. And if a case is not right for us, it makes my day to refer it to another lawyer who I know will be the right attorney to help the client. So I do consider myself a connector. Also, as a small firm, we frequently find ourselves collaborating with larger law firms. These days, most major law firms have an office in Dallas, but a few still don't. We serve as local counsel for a lot of those firms in various matters. And then on some big cases where there's multiple parties, we play in the sandbox well with others and collaborate on a lot of interesting dynamic litigation. One of my biggest fears when I left the big firm was that I wouldn't have the opportunity to continue to work on high stakes, complex civil litigation, that you really needed to be at one of the, traditional firms to do that. And I have found that is not the case. You do have to think about cases differently. You have to make sure you bring enough resources to the table. You collaborate where necessary. But yeah, it's all about connections. And I think that is one of the most enjoyable parts of my practice is that I get to talk to so many amazing people.
So beyond being a connector, I know you spoke about the importance of your reputation as a lawyer and what that means. If we were to call your clients, call fellow lawyers in Dallas and ask them, what is Meagan Martin Powers' brand? What are adjectives you think? And I want to say we have not, this isn't like Family Feud. We haven't gone out and surveyed people. You're not trying to get to 100. But if we were to ask your friends and your colleagues and your clients to pick adjectives to describe you beyond connector, because I've seen that firsthand, how else do you think they would describe you?
Well, I would hope that they would describe me as a good steward. Look, we get hired by Fortune 100 companies. We also get hired by smaller companies who don't have in-house legal. It's usually the founder who's hiring us. And they've been sued for the first time or have to sue somebody for the first time. Other than whoever they use to do their organizational documents, they've not had much interaction with a lawyer. But this is an important case for them, and it's a make or break case for their business. And they're terrified because they've heard very scary things about working with lawyers and how expensive lawyers can be. And I frequently have a discussion with those clients and that it's my job to be a good steward of their resources. And I define that in 3 ways: their budget, their time, and their mental bandwidth. You hire a lawyer to solve problems so you can take them out of your mind and put them into the lawyer's mind. And you need somebody that can be your counselor and that you can trust and that is going to be frank with you. And so if a client was describing me, I hope that they would describe me as being candid and as being a good steward of their resources.
Good steward is the first time I've ever heard someone hope that was an adjective, but as you explained it, I think that's a really great compliment, and I could totally see how someone could describe you as that. We'd love to end with what is the best piece of advice you've ever been given, and what is one piece of advice you want to share with the young female law students and lawyers that are going to be listening to this podcast.
I'll take those in the reverse. The one piece of advice that I would share with young women lawyers and young lawyers in general: nobody's better than you. Lawyering in a way creates a crisis of confidence because we are having to stake out a claim, be it a legal argument or a course of action that, if you're wrong, can have tremendous consequences. And they're not your problems. It's you've yoked yourself with your client's problems, and are telling them how to fix it. And it creates a high burden of responsibility. And in a lot of young lawyers, they worry about whether or not they're getting it right and whether or not they have thought through it correctly, and they have confidence questions. And I think that if you didn't have those concerns, you shouldn't be practicing law. But I think that it is important for young lawyers to remind themselves that if they are bringing their best, if they are being diligent and working their hardest for their client, that no one's better than they are, that they are able to find the right answers and discern the right answers. So the best piece of advice that I've ever been given, oh gosh, I've gotten a lot of really good advice.
Let's hear it all then. Listen, young lawyers need all the advice. When you say crisis of confidence, that hits on all cylinders.
Yeah.
And with just conversations I've had, it seems like it might not go away.
It doesn't.
It seems like it gets better, but I was at Inspiring Women the other day, and Judge Ada Brown was like, imposter syndrome is real. You can hit the highest level of kind of your path in the profession, and you can still have moments where you wonder, am I making the right decisions? Am I making the right calls? Am I the person that's supposed to be sitting there? And so I think when it comes to advice, if you've had multiple, we'll take all the pieces of advice, because the crisis of confidence is real. And I think it's great to hear from more seasoned attorneys about what all it takes to combat that.
And you're right, it doesn't go away. And in fact, it probably gets worse when you do things like leave a large law firm and start a small law firm. And you wonder, will clients hire me if I'm not at XYZ firm? Yes, they will. Clients, it's interesting. We've taken a lot of business from larger firms where the work wasn't getting the attention and the leadership that it needed. And several of those clients, I was actually shocked that they hired our firm, because I always assumed, I made the assumption, that they would only work with, certain brand name law firms. And in certain circumstances where they're answering to their boards of directors and things like that, that makes sense. But I have found that you don't have to be in the large shop to still be a great lawyer and to be worthy and have the capability of doing great work. And our little firm is the engine that could. And we outwork a lot of the larger firms on cases and have been successful in that. But I want to keep this G-rated, but I had a Post-it note. This was early in COVID when we all moved to working from home. And I had a very contentious, high-stakes case where the law firm on the other side is one of the 10 largest law firms in the world. And, they wanted to eat me for breakfast. And I had a Post-it note that said, don't let those mofos get to you. You know you're right. And I literally put it on my screen. It was when we were all transferring over to video conferencing. And it was a hard time to be lawyering. And it was a hard time to be lawyering without a huge support staff. So confidence it plagues you at all levels. But the best advice I've ever been given is from my grandfather. And it was, don't let anyone take advantage of you. Work your hardest, put in an honest day's work, and don't leave anything on the table, but don't let anyone take advantage of you. And I think as women, we are frequently asked to give more than our male brethren for the same over and over again. If you look at the statistics, what is it? Almost half of law school graduates are women. About 40% of associate classes are women. As you get up to the partner ranks, it drops and drops. And equity partners, less than 20% of women. I want to say it's like less than 2 or 3% are women of color. But that's not even the whole story. You then look at who's partner, and you compare their billing rates and their compensation packages, and it's even worse. I frequently am reminded of what my grandfather told me, and I saw that with the traditional firm, and we don't let that happen here. We have a compensation structure that is the same for everyone. And it keeps those kinds of biases from building upon each other and affecting the long-term outcome for people in their careers. So it's funny, my grandfather is in many ways responsible for this firm, but he never lived to see it.
Anything else you want to talk about or say?
Sure.
Keep going.
If you're going to give me a chance, I'll tell you that we are actively looking for more people to join our team. I think we have a great work environment. Brie can hopefully testify to that fact. We just, we're moving into our new office space this week, and we are looking for other like-minded lawyers who want a dynamic team to work with, who want to serve great clients, have the opportunity to build business, and have great colleagues and do it on terms that make sense for their lives at the stage that they're in right now. So yes, if you gave me an opportunity to say anything else, I would say please call me and let's talk about whether or not Martin Powers might be a good fit for your practice, because we are growing, and I hope that we can continue to serve the community at large and the community of lawyers. But that's about it.
I actually have one more question, thinking about, again, going back to this idea of young lawyers and confidence. What is the line between confidence and cocky, or how can you be confident but also show humility and know that as a young attorney, you've read the cases and you've studied the material and you've passed the bar, but there's still so much to learn. So how can you be confident and also have humility at the same time?
That is a good question, and it's an important question, especially as women. It's an important question because when a woman knows the answers and she knows too many of the answers, she's perceived as cocky in a way that maybe a male colleague wouldn't be ascribed as a negative fact. He's confident, she's cocky. So what I would say is it's important to acknowledge this is the basis for why I think we should do X, Y, and Z, and to solicit input from other lawyers. Like medicine, lawyering is a practice. It is the practice of law. And it is something that we are meant as lawyers to mentor each other over the years. It's not something you can arrive from law school knowing how to use Westlaw way better than I ever did to know the answer, because the answer is nuanced and it's based on the facts, it's based on the law, it's also based on the business objectives of the client, it's based on things that literally can have nothing to do with the actual case. And so if you take the time to fully research things and you don't feel the need to give an immediate off-the-cuff answer, it's okay to say, I need to go look at that and I'll get back with you. I think that's the right way to be confident and not cocky, but to be able to say, based on everything I've looked at, here's what we should do and why, and be principled in it. Then I think you should be fine.
So for our last question, I just wanted to ask, are you comfortable if there's going to be a lot of law students, probably some lawyers listening to this podcast? Would you be willing if they shot you an email or gave your office a call just to chat and get some advice?
Absolutely. I am here because of all the advice I've gotten over the years, and I love to talk shop with my fellow law firm owners. I love to impart the little wisdom that I might have on applying to law school. That is so dated at this point. It's all probably completely wrong. But I'm happy to talk with anyone that wants to. The best thing to do is to shoot me an email and we can set a time and get on the phone.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Meagan, for closing out this series in style. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in this summer. This was a passion project for many of us, a way to equalize and break down the gatekeeping for law students and female lawyers. This podcast would not have been possible without the Dallas Women Lawyers Association, especially our mentors, Paige and Maureen, who believed and guided this project, and the 2022 leadership class. A special thanks to Sam for being our mixologist and sound master. While this series is ending, the conversation should not. Let's continue to lift each other up, to inspire, to share, to bridge the gaps, and propel this profession for all.
And that concludes another inspiring and insightful episode of Raising the Bar. Thank you to our hosts, and to our guests, as well as Sam, for bringing our voices to life. Be sure to join us for the next episode of Raising the Bar, as our hosts continue to interview and gain wisdom from some of the brightest legal minds in Dallas. A special thank you to our sponsors, McCathern, as well as Cobb Martinez Woodward, for helping to bring this project to life.